All right, welcome everybody to the live stream. My name is Kyle. Here with me, as always, is Dan, and then we also have a special guest, Mike Simonson, here with Altos Research. So, if you're like a super market data research nerd, or if you just like charts about what's going on in the market, Altos Research, this is the channel here. You'll be able to see Mike, and you can see I've watched quite a few of these videos, except the recent one, which I'm a little bit exposed on because you can't see the red bar now. But Mike goes over what's happening in the market with real data, rather than just like data from the past few months that a lot of people go over. And through that data, he helps you be able to understand what actually is going on in the market so you can make real life decisions about, should I bid over asking price, or should I try to negotiate seller concessions in this market? And so Altos is something that we use a lot when we're helping buyers explore different neighborhoods and markets that they're looking in. So Mike, thank you for joining us. We're super excited to have you on and to hear what's going on and what you expect in the fall market.
Guys, great to be here.
I love having you on because I watch every one of your videos. So, and I try to get on the live events because I want to find out what's going on. And, the two biggest things that we have people, putting off home buying is they're waiting for that rate to come down in the September rate cuts or the December rate cuts. And we're trying to educate people on that. But the other thing is everybody's on the sideline waiting for that crash. And your business, basically your whole business is valuations of homes. So why we have you on here is exactly that. We don't cherry pick people on here to say, okay, here's a person that believes in exactly what we believe in. The housing market's not going to crash or it's going to crash. Mike, we just have Mike on here because he's got the data. I don't care if the data is bad, good, whatever. It is what it is. So that's the introduction to Mike. So I love your data. And every time somebody asks us, you can even watch our live events. Every time somebody asks us about their market, we're like, okay, hold on. We'll show you how to use Altos Research. And we go over to it, and there it is. So,
Great.
Mike, we're just going to let you take the reins on this. And if you guys are, whoever's watching, please let us know where you're watching from. And then if Mike can't go through every profile today on where you guys live and so forth, but at least he can give some generalities of what the market looks like. He goes through cycles. This time of the year, house prices go down, and he'll explain why and all that other stuff. So, Mike, we're just gonna. It's not often I just shut up and sit in the background, but I'll shut up and sit in the background, and you guys take it from here. And I'm gonna watch and learn. So, thanks,
Great.
Mike, again for being here with us, bud.
Yeah. So terrific. And we can start off by talking about some of the questions that you raised already, and then we can dive into the data. We can look at some state level data. We can see where we go. The question of timing, market timing, is always one of the great fears of buying a home is what if I buy now and then it crashes? What if am I buying right at the peak? And it could be that you're buying at the peak. And because markets go up and markets go down, the concept I always say is like, look, if you can afford the house and you love the house, buy the house. If you can't afford it or you don't love it, don't buy the house. Like, don't try to time it because maybe it's going to be cheaper next week or next year. If you can't afford it, then don't buy it. Or don't buy it because you think you have to. So none of those timing things are wise decisions. And so then the question is like, okay, but is the market going to crash? We had a big run up in home prices during the pandemic. And in fact, over the last 14 years, we've had a big run up in home prices. So you look at that price curve and then it's very easy to assume that it went up really high and therefore it could come back down, or it should come back down. And if you look at just, one long-term price chart from a Case-Shiller index, or, you look it up on Fred or something, like you see the number went up real high and therefore it feels like it must jump back down. And so that's a really easy sort of, it's an easy conclusion to draw. Went up real fast, it must drop. So, and I think the interesting, the way to look at the data is it absolutely could. And what we do is we look at the data and say, is it happening now? Are the conditions for it to happen soon? Because like I look for that crash every week. Are there signals that, we're getting a flood of inventory so that all of a sudden supply and demand is going to get way out of balance? Are we getting signals that, the sellers now are cutting prices and they're running away and that deals are falling through? Are we getting any of these signals that we can track? Because if those are starting to happen, then we say, wow, we can see that inventory is way high and skyrocketing each week. That's a bearish signal. So we're looking for all those signals to confirm the hypothesis that maybe there's a big crash. And what I can tell you right now is there's really no signal anywhere in the data of a big crash, happening. There are none of the leading indicators talk about indicate a big price crash. And the leading indicators have about a 12 months, about as far out as you can see in the data now. So in next summer, there could be wars or, there's elections, there's all kinds of stuff that happen in the market. You have no idea. So I don't have visibility in the data that we collect beyond that. So could it happen if you have a hypothesis that the whole economy is a sham and that everything is going to collapse? Maybe that comes through in the next year. What I can tell you right now is home prices are not collapsing now. There's nothing in the data that indicates that it will collapse this year. And there are some things in the data that certainly indicate no big price appreciation. So like in most markets, we can see that prices aren't climbing very aggressively. So you could expect flat home prices. That's in the data. In a couple of places around the country, we can see slightly below last year, home prices slightly below last year, which would make sense. If home prices are flat nationally, some markets will be up a little bit, some markets will be down a little bit. And we can see that in the data, right? So it's not like 2021 when things are going 15, 18, 20% a year. It's not even like 2016 or like the last decade where home prices were reliably climbing every year, 5, 6, 7, 10% a year. That is not in the data now. And so for the people who are with that the hypothesis that homes are very unaffordable, therefore they must crash, right? For those folks, there's an alternate scenario that seems to be playing out right now, which is homes are unaffordable, homes are expensive, and that's true. And they are staying flat over time, 2 years now. Basically, home prices are flat for 2 full years. And then if they stay flat for another few years, meanwhile, incomes are climbing. And so each month, quarter, year, we earn a little more for the same price. So we gain a little bit of affordability on home prices over time because our incomes are up. So that is a scenario that I could imagine playing out, which is home prices don't fall dramatically, maybe a little bit. But meanwhile, incomes climb. And so over time, we get a little better on that affordability question. So I believe there is for the folks who are worried about a crash, who are like sitting on the sidelines waiting for a crash, there's nothing in the data that says a crash is happening or imminent. And there is another very viable scenario, which is home prices don't crash, but they do remain flat for a while. We can see, when mortgage rates climbed in the last 2 years, the housing market absolutely corrected, but it corrected in total sales volume, not in prices. So, the consumer, the average home buyer cares about, and homeowner cares about the value of the house. The industry cares about how many transactions happen. And it turns out that transaction volume can fall way down, but the prices don't have to adjust. In fact, they inched up a little bit last year and will probably be just above positive as we finish out 2024. So that's how you look at the overall question of, shouldn't I wait because isn't the economy a mess, and therefore home prices are going to crash? And you're on social media, I'm on social media, and there's a whole pile of people out there who, like, that's their whole worldview. And when I tell them that home prices are not crashing now, they think I'm lying. They're like, they have to be crashing now. And so it's a really ingrained, but that's what the data says right now.
How did the data read rolling up to the 2008-10 crash?
We could
compare that to today, I guess, would be a
Yeah.
good point.
So we could see a few things. There's a number of leading indicators in the data that we look at. One of them that I like is the percentage of homes on the market with price reductions. And so normally, about a third of homes around the country take a price cut before they sell. From the original list price, they take a price cut sometime. It took 8 weeks to get an offer. Like, we didn't get an offer yet. We're going to drop the price. We took, some time in there, about a third. And so when the market's cool, price reductions might be 35, 40% of the US. The active listings have taken a price cut. When it's really cold, maybe it's 45 or 50%. On the hot side, 35% think they're overpriced, and maybe that's like I'm a seller who's fishing for the offer, but only 20 or 25 or 20, or during the pandemic, 12% of listings took a price cut because we had overbidding. People are buying everything in sight. So the people who are fishing for their bids were actually getting them. So we can use that and like, if a home's on the market now and it doesn't get an offer and it does a price cut in August and it gets an offer in September, it closes in October, you hear about that data in November. Like, we can see right now how many people are doing price cuts. And so, to answer your question, one of the things we could watch is during the pandemic, we got to over 50% of the stock of the homes for sale in the country had taken price cuts during that, or not the pandemic, during the run up to right as the bubble was bursting. So we could see exactly what was going on in 2008. You could see it I live in San Francisco, and we could watch it by zip code. In the further out from Silicon Valley, like core, like Palo Alto, that you get, the one ring further, price cuts, more price cuts, more price cuts. So it was like concentric circles further out. So you could see exactly where, and people were not buying the longer commutes. You could see exactly where that was breaking down. Right now, there are some markets in the country, Austin, Texas, some of Southwest Florida, that have higher, more price reductions, more than normal, slightly more than normal. These are slow markets, and we can see that, like, what's happening there. So that's one way we can use that as a gauge for a leading indicator for what was going on. The other way to look at it is simply supply, active inventory. So right now there are 698,000 single family homes unsold on the market. I don't have and that's across the country. In 2014 and 2015, that was about 1.2 million. So a decade ago, it was almost twice as many homes unsold on the market. And before that, like in 2007, 2008, 2009, it was maybe 1.8 million, 2 million. Like, it was dramatically more homes for sale. So even in places like Austin and Fort Myers, Sarasota right now, where Austin, there's more homes for sale in Austin than there have been since the bubble burst, right? There is more inventory now. There's also, Austin's a significantly bigger city since then. Like, there's a lot of a lot of other things going on, but Austin's slow right now. Like, that's a real thing. And also, Austin has lower price, like prices are down a tick from last year at this time. So all of those places, but it's a few of those. It's a few markets around the country where there's still other markets like Boston and much of the Northeast that has tight inventory, multiple bidders on property. Like there are those kind of things happening. That's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
When you were looking
Got
at
it.
these price
Another
reductions, oh yeah, when you look at these price reductions, and you mentioned on average it's about a third of homes have price reductions before they sell, and then when we saw the housing crash happen, you said that went around 50% or even higher. How long did it take to go from on average about a third to around 50% of price reductions?
Just a few months.
Okay, so it was
And
pretty quick.
yeah, you can watch it. People went, whoa, and we could watch things like properties being relisted. So, especially in places like in Silicon Valley where, at the time, if a house goes 30 days, it's stale. Like there's something wrong if it's 30 days, right? And so there were all the games that would happen, which are like, oh, we took it off the market. And at the time you could take it off the market for, 48 hours and put it back on. And now it's a new listing and it goes out in the new listing, marketing push and all of those things happen. Now you tend to hold it off in most markets, hold it off for about 30 days before they relist it, but you could still watch that number happening. But you can watch that trend shift. We can watch and I can show you some data on that, like, in 22. So in February of 22, when mortgage rates turned the corner, there were in February 22, only 10% of the homes on the market in Austin had taken a price cut, right? In Austin, 40% is normal, but only 10% had. We were buying everything in Austin. By November, it was 62% of the homes, right? So you could see exactly what was happening with those transactions. And that was Austin. And Austin was really led the country slower in 22 and has been really among the slowest markets in the last 2 years around the country. And I can show you data if we want.
Maybe hey guys, I'm gonna reboot real quick.
Yeah, that works, Dan. I'm not sure what happened to the quality here.
I'm gonna refresh my screen. I'll be right back in a second. I don't know why I'm blurry. So I'll be right back, Mike.
Okay.
I'll let you join back. I did have a question before you jump into some of the data you wanted to share, Mike. So for those of you who don't know, Altos Research is not just a YouTube channel that Mike has, but also provides these data reports. Let me add Dan back in here real quick. So I really like when you talk about these price reductions because they are that leading indicator of what's happening in a market. And I think what's really difficult about a lot of the real estate content online is people they only take one data point for maybe the national average, and then they run with a narrative about that. And what I like about the data that you present is it's really similar to like any like good clinical trial or good like clinical science is all about like hedging your statements rather than saying like this is definitively what's going to happen. So I really like that you present data that way where we don't know what's going to happen, but we can take an inference based on what's happened historically and what that usually indicates about a market. And so I think the rhetoric around how you talk about markets is really important and important for people to keep in mind when you're getting market data from other places, when people are just saying, this is exactly what's going to happen versus Mike, when you talk, we can hear you saying, this is what it looks like, or this is what we've seen in the past. To me is a much more like reliable indicator of, okay, this is data that's more likely I can trust than someone just saying one little thing happened and it's going to crash and this is what it means. So when people are looking at these market reports, it also shows the price reductions here and price decreases. So when people are looking at this chart, and maybe I can zoom in a little bit more, how would somebody, if they were looking in this market, interpret a chart like this to maybe understand something about buying in that area?
So what you're looking at here is Hobe Sound, Florida. And That's where my mother-in-law lives. So that's our default report on the Altos website. The
Wondered why it always popped up. I thought it was me. I'm like, look it
um,
up.
the and so the current 39%. So 39% of the homes on the market in Hobe Sound have had price reductions. Um, and the little spark line there, the little chart that you can mouse over there tells you, look, it's about 39 in the midsummer, so it peaked in the 40s. And so it is it's sort of not what you can see really at a glance is it's not like skyrocketing, right? Um, or, correcting down, it's in its sort of normal range there. If you scroll down on that report, and you go to there's a big chart just below here. Yeah. Scroll up just a little bit here in where it says median list price. Click on that guy and go to properties with price decrease. There you go. Okay. So now we can see 5 years of data for Hobe Sound. And you can see the pandemic years, right? 21, 22, we're buying everything, so nobody had to cut their prices. Now we're back in a normal level around 40%. Maybe it's a little higher than, the early 2020s, but this is the last 5 years. So that's what you're doing here. You're looking at say, okay, is this normal? Because if I have a lot of folks who go like, oh, I've been watching this market for 4 years. I know everything that's going on. Like, 4 years is nothing, right? Because 4 years ago, it was in the heart of the pandemic, or 3 years, yes, it looks like there's a lot of price reductions, but it's actually not a lot compared to normal. And so that's how you would use that here. I said about 35% is normal around the country. Some markets like Phoenix or Austin are normally closer to 40%. So, right now in Austin, 55% of the homes on the market in Austin have taken a price cut. And yep, you can go to Austin. That's Austin, Texas. There.
Wait, yeah, I didn't do this yet. Hold on.
I was supposed to be there over the weekend for a wedding, but my mother-in-law passed. So I just got back from that. But my son went, and he said the buildings in Austin, it's still massive. They just keep building and building and building.
Yes. So here's proper price decreases in Austin. Austin has had a great decade, a lot of growth, but you can also see that in late 2019, before February 2020, there on the left side of the chart, right? 48%. So it's not uncommon for Austin to have 50% with price reductions. That's a function of having a lot of inventory per capita, where you compare to like the California markets where it's a chronic shortage of homes for sale. The Texas markets have more. Texas has high property taxes, so you get more resell back. People hoard real estate less, so the inventory is more. And so, but you could see the dramatic change if you were looking to buy in July of 2022, right in the middle of the chart. You could see exactly what was going on, and you'd know, I know these sellers are now panicking. If I'm buying, I have an opportunity here, right? Like you could really see what was going on. So right now we have a we could see that Austin is actually currently the metro market with the most price reductions around the country. This is city of Austin that you're looking at here, which is 60%. Like that's a slow market. You can look at the price segments there. High end of the market may be behaving differently from the low end. And in 22, look at this. In 22, the blue line, that's the most expensive homes. So you could see that the places that cooled the fastest in 22 was the low end of the market in Austin. Isn't that interesting? Like, because if you had the cash, you could still buy $1 million property in Austin, but the folks who were buying at 400K, who were like struggling to make that down payment and pulling the piece, those were the ones who backed off the quickest with higher rates. And so it was a really fascinating dynamic, and that's what you can see by looking at that data.
Dylan has a good question about this. He said, "Why is it just whether there's a price cut and not how much the price cut is?"
So we track how much the price cut is too in our data, the magnitude of the price cut. It averages about 5%. So right now across the country, the median price of homes across the country is 400 grand. The magnitude of the price cuts is 20,000 bucks. Like it is. And, if it goes to 25 or 28 suddenly, that would be a signal. But most of all, like it tends to be about 5%. And so you can see it on that, right? And so the one that I use as the leading indicator most of the time is the number of homes, how frequently that price cut is happening.
Gotcha.
I had a question. A lot of people use June of 2022 is like their end all beat all when it comes to that's when housing peaked, and then it's come down off of that. Where are they getting that?
So, I could show you some data here about let's see, the best way. Let me go get a chart up over here. The reason that June 22 was the peak, it was the peak of transaction volume because pandemic's ending in January, February, March of 22. Rates were threes in the fours. April, they go 4 to 5. If I'm buying a house and I've been shopping for 18 months and I've been getting outbid, I'm still like trying to cram the deal in June. If I'm a seller and it's June of 22, I go, I can't wait till July,
Yeah.
right? Because I know, like everybody could see what's happening. So what happened was, if you're trying to get your deal done, you got it done in June. And then in the second half of 22, rates kept rising. They rose through July, and then they hit a big spike in September. And so then if you were, now you're really confirmed that, oh, I missed the window. So you could see at that moment in June of 22, a bunch of things happened. The new listings volume each week dropped immediately after the 4th of July holiday. And I can show you, I think I've got one of these handy here. Let's see, my new listings volume. Let's see, I could show you here. Let's show you this guy. Let me stop sharing this one and share this guy. Okay. Okay. In here, I've got, I don't have it in slideshow mode, but I think it's probably pretty good here, big enough here. Each line here is the total sellers per week, number of new listings each week. And, it bounces around, but each year you could see fewest sellers in January, rises, peaks in June, and falls down for the second half of the year. The gray lines are previous years, last 8 or 9 years. The red lines are dark red line is this year, bright red is last year, and then the pink one is 22. And what we can see is that in 22, the pink line peaked right there, July, like the last week of June, and then immediately drops off after the 4th of July. And then the rest of the year, look, it's way fewer sellers than any of the gray lines. So you could see it. Here's the moment is the last week of June or maybe the first week of July 22. And then sellers went, oh, we're done. And so there's always a dip for the 4th of July holiday, but then they never came back. And so you could see it in prices. You could see it in sellers. You could see it in transaction volume. And it was like, if it's not done by the end of June, like if I'm a seller, I'm like, all right, I'll wait to see what happens later. If I'm a buyer, I'm like, I guess I missed my window. Whatever the things were, they hit in that, like you can see it dramatically there. So then after 20, and one of the things that was really telling about this is, so in the first half of 22, we know the market's slowing. We know rates are rising. April, May, June. It's now rates went, in April, they went from 4 to 5, in May, 5 to 6, like they were skyrocketing and everybody knew it, right? Um, Inventory was rising. So we could see that there were more sellers each week. And at that point, you say, wow, if this pink line continues and is over here at 100,000 by the end of the year, like that is a signal. That's that crash signal that we were looking for. Like if we see sellers panicking and they need to get out, that would be a crash signal that you'd see. You'd get like more sellers while demand is falling. And so then when this happens in July, all of a sudden we go, wow, there's a cap that's going to be on available inventory because sellers have just walked away. And because there's a cap on available inventory, supply is capped. Even if demand is down, supply and demand can't get like way out of whack like 2008. And so this is one of the signals that I'm watching for. Is there any signal of a surge or a flood of sellers that are going to get us out of whack that make a real supply demand imbalance? And as of right now, you can see all year, this year has had slightly more sellers than last year. So the dark line here, slightly higher than the red line. 67,000 new listings that were unsold this week, single family homes around the country. And 70,000 all peak summer long, when normally it would be 90,000 a week that would be sellers, right? If you're going to sell 5 million homes a year, you need 100,000 a week. And so this is single family, then you add condos and townhomes on top of it. And if you're going to sell, if we're only doing 67,000 new listings, the transactions are going to be really low.
I love your point. Here's what we get a lot of times is, they bash our videos because they're like, we're saying the market, we're telling them what's really going on in the market. We're not on the crash bandwagon. If it was crashing, I'd be more than happy to say it's crash. Here's what the take. I love what you said. Where we saw the crash was in transactions, not value. I would love tons more transactions. I don't give a shit about the volume or the values. Right. And I hate to say it that way. It's like, I'd rather see 8 million homes sold. I hate to say it this way. I don't care if they crash or not. So when people say, "Oh, you're in the real estate thing," you always want house prices to go up. I hate to be this transparent. I don't care. I mean, you hit on the button. We make money on transactions. So we're out here just peddling the real information for you guys. So if you're watching, you get it. I don't care what happens to values. I'll be blunt on that on the channel right now.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying, though? You understand my take on that?
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. The industry is like, it's a transaction volume business. But to the consumer, they don't care how many homes sell. They care about how much they cost. Right. And so it's two sides of what's the housing market doing? And, how is the housing market? Now they can be related, right? If transaction volume is down, and that supply is going up, that's the signal that we are looking for, like, will home prices crash? And frankly, Dan, I think we do care whether home prices crash, because if they crash, we have a lot of problems. But
there's more effects than that. I get it. But my whole thing was, they're like, well, you're just FOMOing, home prices and all this because of you're in the business. I'm like, yeah, that's not how it works. I'd rather do 10 loans, for 300,000 a piece versus one at 400,000. You know what I mean?
I want my customers to know exactly what's happening. I want people to know what's happening. The criticism, they're like, oh, you're like lying about the data. Like, in what way does it serve us to give wrong data? Like, the whole point is that we're giving you the best data we can. So, but I think so like, watching the new listings volume each week is one of the things that I like to do. And especially right now is we need, new listings climbing, more sellers each week means that more sales can happen. So before the market grows again, we need more sellers. We also, though, on the other side, we want to see the sellers and the buyers growing together, because otherwise it would be a pretty bearish signal to watch if we were legitimately had 90,000 single family homes listing for sale each week, and we're doing 60,000 transactions. Like that would be a big deal. We don't have that right now, but that's what we're looking for in the data.
Got it.
Someone did say, thanks for insight, Mike. I love Altos research. I'm just a regular dude who's trying to learn about real estate so I can successfully for sale by owner and buy without an agent. That's great.
Another fiasco coming through the pipeline right now, that NARS settlement. I'm going to ask one more question. I'll fill in, and then we'll go straight to. I want my questions answered, so I'm giving a super chat out there. Okay, I'm going to ask you. Here's the question that all analysts get: at what rate does it take for the sellers to get back in the market? I don't know that answer. Do you have do you know kind of? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. And let me I'm going to pull up a chart that I made yesterday, and let me see if I can find it real quick. This is a chart of, let's see, rates. I'm going to find it real quick.
Folks, Mike isn't just some guy at Altos. He created this whole thing. So he's the man. Just so you guys know, he's not a face of the company. He's the man. So while
There
he's
we
looking.
go. So let's see. Okay, here, mortgage rates. It's a mortgage rates. This one's it right here. Okay. I got it up. Let me do this. Let me share this screen here. So share this screen here. Okay. So this is the distribution of mortgage rates over the last, actually it's 12 years. Each dot is the weekly average of the mortgage rate for a given week. So each dot is a week, and for the 30-year fix. So you could see that we've got these two bubbles. Most of the last decade was in this 2.5 to 4.5 range. And then last 2 years has been this rightmost bubble. And in fact, most of the year, the red line, the today line, has been, 7. It's been at the right end of the rightmost bubble. Yeah. So as I'm looking at this chart, what this says, tells you where people's rates are. This is where homeowners have. And my question is, like, if we've been shopping at 7%, if I've been shopping for a home at 7%, and now it's 6.5%, I have a significant price improvement. Is that enough to motivate buyers from 7 to 6.5? I've been assuming that below the 6.5 to 6% would be enough to motivate buyers. And if you think about it, it's like, okay, if we get close to 6, we're better than the last 2 years. And so it's sort of like suddenly it's the cheapest environment of the last 2 years to pay for payments, and maybe that moves some people off the fence. It doesn't get us all the way to that. Does it have to be under 5%? Does it have to be all the way in the left side bubble before people are motivated? I've been assuming that it's this 6.5 is where we would start to see motion, because we've spent the last 2 years at the far right end of this chart. As of right now, we've had a few weeks now closer to 6.5. We had the 10-year came down. We haven't not really measured any buyers' advantage, like ticking up yet. So as of right now, I'm kind of like, maybe I was overly optimistic that was. I haven't yet seen it. Now it's later in the year, so it took longer for rates to even get down. And we started the year at about 6. They promptly went up to 7. We started the year though, like the mortgage rate forecasters were saying 5.5 is going to happen this year. And we've been at 7.5 instead. And so, you know, like, so it does, like, have we just washed everybody out for this year? And then therefore, like, now the people are waiting and say, well, I'll see where rates are in the spring and I'll try it again. Maybe it'll be better then. So we maybe have, even though rates have fallen from 7 to 6.5 right now, because of the timing of the year and because they were higher for longer, maybe it just hasn't, like, the threshold didn't materialize like I was frankly hoping it would, to see some action. I haven't really seen it in the data yet. Maybe we go to 6, maybe if the Fed does a 50 basis point cut in September and the mortgage markets react and therefore, the 30-year falls closer to 6, maybe that stuff, does, but then now it's September, right? And so even fewer transactions happen, and maybe that just sets us up for a better spring.
I'm just thinking, the psyche of like 599 or something like that would kind of help. Hey, just out there was a person, Jeff, he commented, I didn't mean, when I said, I don't care if there's a crash, I hope you guys understand. I was kind of in jest. I don't want the housing market to crash. I have 2 of them. So it's like I want the stock market to crash. No, I got investments. My whole point was, I hope you guys understood my point, was we're transactions. How we make money is transactions. So the value of the homes, I don't make, my channel isn't about crashing. I don't make really much money on my YouTube channel like all those crashers do. So how I make money is truly in the mortgage business. So we make money on transactions. So when people say, you're not saying the housing market's going down or crashing because, that's because you're pumping or FOMOing real estate. Well, that isn't what I meant. And my whole thing was, where the prices go, I can't control and I don't know. But, I make more money when there's more transactions versus the housing market continuing to go up. So I just wanted to clarify that. So I didn't want people to think I don't care. I'm a homeowner too, folks. So, and I got 2 of them and I don't want them to crash.
You got called out here by Dylan and said, where's Dan's dot at 2.5?
It's right on the very edge.
Oh, yeah. So Mike, Mike, the rate on my mortgage is 2.625. So that's why everybody jokes about the 2.5 rate. So that's where I'm at. Yep. But I still think the psyche is in the 5s. when people start seeing 5 something, it might start spurring something. So that's why I just didn't know if you had something in there.
Yeah, and you could see, so if you're in the 5s, now you're getting close to this left side bubble here, and suddenly, like, this is where people feel like this feels normal to folks. And so you start getting, and suddenly it feels normal as opposed to feeling high. So yes, 5 in the 5s could be the threshold that we see. I like this because you can see where we were and where we've been. And you can see, like, that view is kind of, I sort of accidentally made this chart. I was like, oh, this is really interesting.
It is. And I didn't, when you look at all the charts, it basically gives you look at it and it's like, oh, the average rate's like, 5.5 or below, or 6 and below. When you see this, you think, oh my goodness, everybody's at like 4 at 4. So we have to go to 4 to spur things again. I don't think we're going to get to 4 in a long time.
It sure doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, each year or each month or week that we spend up here, more of the bubbles, shift this way. So normal feels like in the 6s and 7s, and therefore those transactions start picking up over time because that's what's normal. We're still in this, post-pandemic, everything was weird kind of shadow that we haven't come out of yet.
Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. Is there any, if you guys are out there and you got questions, and we don't, Mike doesn't have time to, and I'm not trying to be rude, to go through everybody's, where they live and so forth. So we'll have the Altos link down below so you guys could check the market that you're into. But if you got any questions, that Mike, might be addressed to Mike, please ask him. That's why we asked him on, and he took time out of his I'm sure he's a busy man, out of his day to join us. So please ask your questions if you got them.
Yeah, we can look at this is available inventory, change compared to last year. So every state in the country has more homes for sale than a year ago. Some like Arizona and Florida have like 70% more homes on the market than a year ago. But some like New York's got 10% more. But every state in the country has more homes on the market now than a year ago. The 7 stars here have more inventory now than 2019. And that number is growing. So inventory, and the longer inventory stays higher, or the longer interest rates stay higher, the further inventory grows. So higher inventory leads to higher interest rates lead to higher inventory. And if rates fall again, then these would compress. And so like the this is only these 7 states have more inventory than 2019, just before the pandemic. So most of the country still has fewer homes on the market than even 2019. So what this says is, despite looking around, you go, wow, there's a lot of homes on the market. It's still fewer than normal in almost everywhere. And it's climbing, right? And so it is climbing. Now, in 23, mortgage rates spiked in September. They went to 8%, and inventory spiked at the same time, September, October, November. So later this year, if we're in the opposite mode where rates are falling and the Fed cuts and we get lucky and rates tick down from here, then these numbers will actually compress, because like inventory was growing pretty rapidly very late in the year, unusually late, grew all the way till November last year. So that was unusual. And so this year might be a little more normal. And so the actual year over year inventory change won't be that dramatic by the time we end the year. But this is an interesting view of like where the where inventory has been growing. The Midwest and Northeast has been the least, and the Sun Belt has been the most inventory growth year over year.
Got it. That's a great chart, because if you notice, these are all the areas that Crash and Doomers point out. They're like, look at Texas and look at this. You had an intriguing, like it was a map like this in your last video that gave how much homes appreciated throughout the country. Do you have that handy?
Yep.
I should.
Yep. Here, I've got this one here. So
yeah, that's it.
The bluer the number, the bluer the state, the more home prices have appreciated over the last year. The reds are negative, but they're also, I want to point out, even though Montana and South Carolina are very red, it's like barely negative. Essentially, Montana's minus 1.9%, plus or minus 2-3% is, you call it flat. It's like, maybe and it could bounce in a week, depending on where things are. So three states showing negative price appreciation year over year, but you could also see, Texas and Florida and Tennessee that are basically unchanged year over year. Arizona, like all of that, you figure home prices are not changed in a year. And this is looking at, these are the pending prices. So these are the homes that are going into contract in a given week where they priced. And so it's the earliest proxy for sales that haven't yet completed. So, they take 30 or 45 days or so to like, these are sales that will complete in August or September. And so, but we can see where the strength is across the north part of the country, and Northeast is where home prices have stayed the strongest. And then mostly Sun Belt, where they are flat. But no state is at like minus 10% or anything like that, even if like, Austin per se might be 10% off the June 22 peak, that absolute peak. The statewide it's flat.
So these are the pending prices.
Yep.
Is there much of a difference on like closed transactions?
There's almost no difference.
So
in aggregate,
so where's the real math that show us, because these numbers have to be wrong. They have to be wrong, Mike, because house prices are crashing all over the country. I'm being sarcastic. Sorry. You don't know my personality
Right.
yet. So, when you see everything, it's like, the market's down 20, 30%. Well, if you really knew the true numbers and this and that, it's like, well, so these numbers, whose numbers are wrong? I guess is the way you get where I'm saying. I know I'm being a kind of really sarcastic,
Yeah.
but that's what we're trying to
Well,
explain to
what's
people. It's
interesting.
like, well, everybody's telling us the markets are crashing, so these have to be wrong.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Well,
sorry.
and what's interesting, Dan, is that there are lots of ways actually to measure home prices.
Okay.
We're at Alto, we track every home for sale in the country every week and all the pricing, all the supply and demand. And then we track all the pendings and all the ones that went into contract. And so, if you look at the homes on the market around the country, those home prices are unchanged year over year. 400 and whatever it is, $430,000, something like that. $400,000 and year over year and unchanged. So same change prices as it were. Like if you walk in and you look at all 698,000 single family homes, the median price is whatever that 450 number is. And it's the
Got it.
same as it was last year and 2 years ago, unchanged for 2 years. Now,
Got it.
if you look at a thing like the Case-Shiller Index, Case-Shiller Index is a repeat sales index. So it's looking at the same house over time. How much did it sell for? The Case-Shiller is still reporting, and those sales indexes are still reporting like 5% home price gains.
Yeah.
And the way those numbers get a lot of headlines. So nationally, like that is what you're seeing is the Case-Shiller Index. Let's see, it's August. It was end of July was the most recent, and that was May. That's March, April, May data, I think, is what's in that in the Case-Shiller Index. And so as of March, April, May, there was still a few percent home price gains. What we're looking at here are the pendings. And so they got to be pending before they're sold. And so what we can see is that nationally we're up, like 3 or 4% on the pendings year over year, national average. And so that means that it implies that like the things like the headline numbers like the Case-Shiller Index is actually going to ease down in the second half of the year as they announce those numbers. It'll still be positive, but I think it'll be like 3%, maybe 4, maybe 2.5, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. The reason why I brought up that is like, where's the real numbers? Because even at the beginning, you're like, I'll present my data, and everybody's like, okay, those are wrong. That the information you're providing is inaccurate. It's like, no, it's not. This is just the real data. So that's why I made that comment. It was just saying, okay, where's the real data now? So you have it. And again, that's why we had asked you on here, because you are a world of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. And so as soon as honestly, every time, and Kyle does the same thing, and you could probably ask on the chat side, we bring you up basically at every video, every live event and things like that. And we love, people being able to ask you some questions. So now you can see why I said, I'll shut up, sit in the background, and you guys can answer some questions. So my questions are done. And I don't know why I keep fogging up over here.
I know it looks like you're streaming from like a Nintendo DS over there. What's Mike's thoughts if a first-time homebuyers all of a sudden got a $25,000 down payment assistance? I think that's a lot of fear, even when sometimes we talk about grants. Dan, I mean, how many times do we talk about grants? And one of the first, at least somebody is like, this is responsible for the market being the way it is. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. But there are some bills that have been introduced about things like $25,000. I believe it was I can't remember if it was a tax credit or exactly the details of the bill. But what are your thoughts on some of the larger down payment assistance programs and the impact that they would have nationally or even some of these local markets?
Yeah, and I think this one's probably referring to the Kamala proposal the other day where she said, let's build 3 million more homes, and I want to do a $25,000 first-time homebuyer credit. And so, I think that one, because she said it in a presidential campaign, got a lot of attention, and people said, like, oh my God, you're going to stimulate, like it's going to be inflationary and what most people don't realize is how common it is for us to do programs like this, grants and tax credits and like things like that all the time. Now, we know that in 2009, they did a first-time homebuyer tax credit, and it worked spectacularly well to put a floor on the housing market in 2009. Now, that was not a market that was supply constrained. And so to stimulate demand for first-time home buyers, that was the right time to do it. So now what it is like, look, it's unaffordable, and this helps it be more affordable for those buyers. So in that sense, I am okay with it. It's probably suboptimal for solving the big affordability problem, which is the other half of what Kamala mentioned the other day, which is like, let's build more homes. And so, the supply side is much more likely to be long-term impactful for the affordability question. So, as you mentioned, like there's grants, there's home buyer credits, there's like all kinds of programs happening all the time for down payment assistance. And so I don't think that this per se will add that much impact to the market, but it might make a difference for a handful of buyers who, 25K makes a difference about whether I can buy or not.
Yeah, I'm curious too, and again, it's hard to tell unless we see these programs actually play out on a large scale. What would in this type of market? But I'm curious. Oh, we lost Dan. Okay, I'm sure he'll be back at some point. Similar to, I don't know if you track the Dream for All program, but here we go. I'm back in here. Welcome
sorry,
back.
folks.
You're good.
I don't know what's going on. My apologies, Mike.
Some of what we saw with the Dream for All program that offered, 20%, effectively as like a 0% interest loan that had to be, shared appreciation had to be given back. What we saw with a lot of people who were looking at the Dream for All program is that they wouldn't have bought anyway. So they only were buying because they were getting that incentive. And so I'm curious if it's similar, if we would see something similar with a large national program like that, where that would be a huge program that could apply to a lot of people, but those people might not be ready to buy to begin with. And with the Dream for All program, it provided so much assistance that it almost seemed like, yeah, if I can get access to this, I might as well buy a home. But when it's something like $25,000 versus the 20% on $1 million home in California, is a little bit of a different ballgame. And so I'm just curious if we saw some of those programs, if they're not going to have as big of an impact, because it sounds like, okay, $25,000 is going to make everyone run out into the street and try to buy a home. But I don't think that's really how it's going to plan out. Again, because we saw like the Dream for All program kind of functioned in a similar way, where people were really only looking at it because they were getting that incentive. So I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see how that actually plays out.
Yeah, and the thing that we saw this week, of course, is a campaign proposal. You don't know what a program looks like at all, but I do think we are the most critical issue with the U.S. housing market is supply, and so I find it encouraging that not just at the presidential level, but more and more at the local levels. I live in San Francisco, man. Like, we know how to restrict supply for homes, and everywhere they are starting to recognize how important it is to allow housing supply to get created. And so I think that's very encouraging for the country. It's a long-term gain, but it's a new world where it's starting to be well received. And normally at the federal level, the knob they have is a demand knob, right? It's like, well, we got money, we can make it cheaper for you, and so that's the knob to turn. So a thing like a tax credit is very common as a solution.
Yeah. Mike, we can't thank you enough for being on here. I do want to share how people can get connected with Altos Research. So number one, you have a YouTube channel here that's fantastic. Dan and I watch again, pretty much every video. It's super helpful if you're a real estate agent, particularly it's going to be helpful for you. But even if you're a home buyer, I think this is going to be really helpful information to give actual data to support what's going on in the market and what your plans are for looking at buying within the next few months and seeing what's happening with national data and then also what's happening with local markets. And then, Mike, could you tell us what would be the best way for people to get connected with you, both or get connected with Altos, sorry, both for real estate agents, lenders, and home buyers?
Yeah. So if you're a home buyer, you can go to Altos and run a report for your local market, and you can go get that and type in run a report and get the data. And you can go explore that. And you can look in your price range and do those things. If you are a professional, then what we do is we help you communicate about the local market to all of the home buyers and sellers who are not on this video right now. They need to hear the data from you. And so when you go, and the easiest way there is to just go, get started, book a demo, book a consult with our team. We can help you talk about your local market. We can show you how, like, these reports, like, they're branded for you, and you get them into people's emails, and so that your buyers and sellers get the data from you, so that, because there's always something to be paying attention to in the housing market. It's always fresh. And your home buyers, if they're not buying until next spring, there's a lot of them that maybe not buy until next spring. But if they're getting the data from you now they've getting the data from you each week or once a month from you. Now it comes around to February and they go, hey, Dan's my guy. He sends me the report every week. And so it is a nurture process that is like, everybody wants to know what's going on. So they read the email, they pay attention to it, and it comes out. It's always fresh every week. So that's what I recommend. So just go book a free consult with our team. The ebook is great, what you're showing here. So for professionals, the data that I showed today, we talk about how to talk about it. We show, like, here's how you read the data. Here's what price reductions mean. Here's how you read the reports. It's a free ebook, so you can go grab that ebook, and it'll be in, and that'll be part of the business.
This ebook is insane.
It is. It's
feel
awesome.
Like most of the time,
I didn't read it until just a couple weeks ago, and Kyle's like, "Hey, did you read Mike's ebook?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Dude, you got to read it." So
yeah, I feel like
there's a lot of stuff in there I didn't
most
realize.
ebooks are like garbage. They're like 4 pages, and you're like, "That was stupid." This is like super packed with info, and it was really, like, I think it was super helpful for me, and I'm sure it was for you, Dan, too, because you can take a look at these reports, and often it's you get kind of overwhelmed with the information. And what I like about it is you're taking all these kind of common questions that people ask and putting them in this ebook and telling you, how do you answer them with this data, or what is the data actually telling you? Should I try to negotiate for seller concessions? Okay, well, what here in the data is actually going to inform me about the decision? Or what do we expect to happen in this market in the next 3 months? That information, we can have a high likelihood of assuming what's going to happen in the market based on reading this data here, rather than, I think what most people do with data is they just kind of look at it and they go, huh. And then there's really nothing left after that. Gives this false sense of security. Like, if I just look at the data, then I'm going to feel better about it, versus this is actually helping you understand just how you've been talking about data this stream, how you can talk, or how you can think very similarly about these local markets, which I think is super powerful for both professionals and home buyers.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we do it for. And it's free. So go knock yourself out and go download that, and you can learn how to communicate with the data.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate it. We'll be doing this live stream again next week, same time, same place, 3:30 Eastern. Mike won't be with us this time, but you can go to how do I point to that? altosresearch.com to be able to get connected there, and then also go subscribe to Altos Research YouTube channel. Mike, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you all next week.
Take care, Mike. Bye-bye.